President Cyril Ramaphosa has yesterday signed into law the Electricity Regulation Amendment Act, which, amongst other things, gives birth to an independent transmission systems operation alongside the recently incorporated National Transmission Company of South Africa. The act, however, did not pass uncontested as the South African Local Government Association, SALGA, expressed their dissatisfaction with the legislative changes that would be made to the electricity reticulation powers of local government, citing that it threatens to bankrupt local government. For more on this, we're joined by Energy Analyst Ruse Moleshe. Ruse, to perhaps start the conversation here, SALGA at some point said, hold on, we have the power to reticulate electricity that's been given to us in the Constitution due to the separation of powers between local government, provincial government and national government. This act severely limits the reticulation powers of local government. It means that local government can no longer make money as a reticulation exercise, given that it would be centralized at a national level. Of course, that meant that the bill was to be reconsidered at some point, that the bill would be contested in court at some point, should it leave local government in a situation where they can't reticulate electricity anymore. To what extent does that change the landscape of electricity distribution and transmission at the different spheres of government?
Good evening to you and to the viewers. At this point, what has been changed is the deregulation and sort of moving away of the transmission business from the generation of Eskom. Remember that Eskom was a vertically integrated utility, and that means it was involved in generation, transmission, and part of distribution, and the municipalities other part of distribution. So for now, the focus is on the transmission company, which will be given powers now to operate a market. And basically the generation business will be opened up to other role players. They will no longer sell electricity to Eskom, for instance. They will now compete with Eskom, at least theoretically, because Eskom is still dominant. Later on, the distribution business will be dealt with where the distribution and transmission will all be centered in one and allow third parties to access it at a fee. And then the municipalities will compete with other role players in the market. And this is where the fear is coming from. Though this part of the market reform doesn't yet involve the distribution segment of the business.
Yeah, this does bring changes around access to grid. Which is the regulatory authority in that? Is it NERSA, the National Energy Regulator, or will it be the systems operator, which, by the way, they still have 5 years, according to the Act, to incorporate?
So the system operator will manage the transmission infrastructure, and they will set the fees for anybody who wants to wield their power through that system. Of course, in terms of licensing, the current regulator has got an oversight over that. They license and they will make sure that there's compliance in terms of conditions and rules in terms of licensing. So yes, the transmission operator will make sure that there's sufficient infrastructure invested in, there's access for third parties, and manage the whole system. But obviously, in terms of oversight, they still, NERSA will oversee that.
Yeah, IPPs have also been given special attention in the Act as it currently stands, and that's very specifically pertaining to the competition that they will, like you say, have when it comes to Eskom. What we've had so far is bid window periods where the state puts out a bid for the procurement of electricity. Very specifically, they'll say in specification, we want wind, we want solar, or we want a combination of these sort of things. The imagination is moving forward that no energy supplier would have to wait for the state to be able to invest in that infrastructure to produce electricity. They can sell it to whoever wants to buy, as long as they're all both connected to either end of the grid. How long will we see that take to operationalize?
So there's provision for two ways, a hybrid market where there's a market system almost operating like the JSE, and everybody participates in that from a generation point of view. And then there's bilateral. So all of those that have signed with government currently have now gone on to sign with the National Transmission Company as legacy projects. So because they've signed over 20 years, then there's a transitional period over which the market rules will be set and all of that for this whole thing to be fully implemented, which is a period of 5 years. So in the meantime, they will develop codes in terms of who participates, how do they participate, the platform, and that will eventually allow the different players to participate in the market.
Yeah, as it currently stands, the Transmission Company of South Africa will act as the systems operator, but the Act does say it needs to be an independent entity. At the moment, the Transmission Company of South Africa is not an independent entity, it's incorporated as a subsidiary of Eskom. That spells out some regulatory problems, does it not?
There is an element of independence in that it's been moved out of Eskom and it has its own board, which it accounts for in terms of strategy, it accounts for in terms of performance. So they no longer really account directly to Eskom whilst allowing other players to play in the market. So that is the arrangement that we have. Yes, it's still a subsidiary of Eskom, but it's got its own board and it's got its own website, its own systems now. Even in terms of application to the regulator for revenues to be able to develop the infrastructure, they will be doing a separate application from the whole of Eskom. So in that sense, there is an independence.
Yeah, that's where we're going to have to leave it. Ruse Moleshe, thank you so much for your time this evening. Really do appreciate it. Energy Analyst talking there on Ramaphosa's ratification of the energy market reform law.